Hello, everyone, and welcome to this session on monetizing 5G era applications. My name is Nitin, and I'm delighted to be here today along with my colleague, Kanika Atri. Hi, Kanika. So today we are going to talk to you about how 5G is gaining traction, specifically in the APAC region, and what are the applications that can make money from 5G. So let's dive right into it. So 5G is here. It's no longer hype. There's about 92 operators who've already launched services across 38 countries, about 100 million subscribers already using 5G services. And there's about $1 trillion of CapEx that is expected to be invested in this technology over the next 5 years. The traction around 5G revolves around three different segments: the consumer segment, the enterprise segment, and the government segment. And collectively, it's expected to be a $3.4 trillion market. Now, with all of this excitement around 5G, there's also a lot of questions around it, specifically in the APAC region, as to when 5G is going to get launched in different parts of APAC, where should service providers be looking to invest from the perspective of the network, and what are the services that are going to make money. So let's start there, and let us look at what are these services, and what is that killer app that is going to get us the dollars in. So Kanika, what are your thoughts on that? What do you see as the killer app for the 5G era?
Indeed, everyone wants to know the answer to that question. But to be honest, we don't know for sure yet. But we do know a few related things. We know that number one, the killer app is not gigabit broadband, because that's just table stakes now. We know that the concept of a killer app itself may change, moving from just a single app to actually a whole group of apps within a large domain. We also know that it might be more important to have a killer network as compared to a killer app. And that's because, in the future, there are many known and unknown applications of 5G that we haven't even imagined today, and the network should be able to serve those. One thing is for sure, that the killer segment is enterprise. And there are predictions that the 5G enabled B2B opportunity for service providers is about $700 billion. In fact, enterprises are going to be the highest spenders on cloud and AI as well, as part of this digitization journey, because they will be the biggest beneficiaries of the productivity gains, of, the agility that they get, and also the whole changing that experience. So no wonder they are the killer segment. For service providers also, this is about growth. If they were not to rely on these enterprise digitization revenues, their annual growth rate would be fairly flattish, say under 1%. But if they actually capitalize on this opportunity, they could be growing by 12% year on year for the next 10 years. And that's why all the eyes are on the enterprise opportunity.
Yeah, that seems to make sense, Kanika, that the focus has to be around enterprise. But can you share, what do you see as the more near-term opportunities for service providers for monetization?
Absolutely right question to ask. We know that in the long term, connected cars, connected ambulances will come to life. But the question that service providers are asking, what is it that can we monetize first? So let me try to give three very specific examples. The first one is premium broadband with content bundling. Yes, I said that, gigabit broadband is table stakes. It's not, people will not pay premium. It's not killer. That is still true. But the trick is to actually bundle it with content in order to make money. And here's why I believe that works. If you look at the data from Korea alone, there is a 2x increase in the 5G traffic versus 4G, and nearly a 4x increase in the video streaming traffic out of that. And both of these are actually driven by content bundling. There's a great report from GSMA that compares the 4G to 5G tariff delta, and that suggests that consumers are willing to pay a 20 to 25% premium for 5G when bundled with content. Another great example is KT. Recently, in their quarterly results, they shared that more than 50% of the new 5G subscribers, they opted for plans that actually came with content bundles around music, content, AR, video, and so on. Analysts, of course, couldn't agree more. And here's a great report from Omdia that suggests that there could be an 81% boost in OTT revenues when bundled with content. So I think it's very clear that in order to make money with high-speed broadband, offer a premium service packed with amazing content and great video experience, because video will continue to dominate, even into the next decade. The second opportunity in the short term is fixed wireless access. Sounds like a no-brainer, actually. There are 395 operators who already sell fixed wireless access based on LTE. And now 37 operators out of the 92 that have already launched 5G, they're already selling 5G based fixed wireless access. So it's clearly one of the first, go-to-market applications that's making money. And it's not surprising, because now millimeter wave for the last mile, that business case is proven. It's also field proven, and it's a much faster rollout, which is much more cost efficient. You can take it to the rural areas. And the best part is that you can actually enhance with a lot of quad play and home entertainment, all these services beyond just plain gigabits. And a great case is actually even in ASEAN, right? Like we can see it is 20% cheaper than the current fixed broadband prices in Indonesia.
Yes, so exactly, Kanika. So the study here was very interesting, because it kind of shows that fixed broadband is not just a new service, but it could be a very good alternative to how fixed broadband is being used today. And it could actually be cheaper to offer this service, and more, of course, faster as well to do that.
Absolutely. So application area number 3, and again, this is very basic and very simple. So we are already selling enterprise broadband services, right? With 5G, you have the opportunity to enhance them and provide on the top of it cloud delivered managed services. Now, let's take a look at a simple enterprise broadband use case. In this picture on the top left, first scenario is where it's just a basic broadband. All they need is basic, high-speed SLAs. A second scenario is, say, a private 5G and on-prem, let's say a shipping port, right, where they have very specific SLA requirements that bandwidth may vary. In the third case, which is like a private 5G off-prem scenario, let's say it's a campus, they only need some applications to have a specific SLA, and they're okay about everything else. Now, how do we serve this? In the first case, we can have the UPF hosted on the central telco cloud. In the second case, we could do it, on premise itself. In the third, we could just host the UPF on the distributed edge. And all of this is going to be serviced by the same underlying IP fabric that is going to be sliced end to end, that provides these different SLAs. So Juniper actually provides all these different building blocks to bring a solution like this together. But to me, the icing on the cake is actually what on top of this infrastructure, you can actually deliver the full suite of managed services, things like managed security, managed communication collaboration, managed mobility, and the most obvious, the managed network services. For example, managed SD-WAN, which is growing like hotcakes right now. In fact, this whole market is about $82 billion market, and the potential is actually limitless, because with the same model, they can actually enhance towards a public-private cloud applications and services, and also eventually move to this AI-driven enterprise, so have a lot more AI and analytics services on top. So with that, Nitin, I'm curious to hear a little bit about your perspective from APAC. What is the traction like there, and how is it picking up?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, Kanika, because APAC, I would say, is a bit of a mixed bag. I mean, all of us know that, APAC is going to be the center of a lot of the action around 5G. We discussed earlier that there's about $1 trillion of CapEx still for the next 5 years. And as you can see here, 1/3 of that CapEx, 330 million, is going to be spent inside APAC. There's about 700 million new subscribers that will come on for the first time using these services by 2025. So there's a lot of scope for growth inside APAC. We've already seen launches, some of the first launches in the world. Now we have launches in 9 markets already, including South Korea, Japan, China, etc. And there's 12 markets who've already indicated their plans to announce services. But there's also another side of this story, which is how this will evolve in some of the developing markets in APAC. So, for example, if you look at South Asia, India, Bangladesh, Nepal, Sri Lanka, Pakistan, all of these areas, here, the spectrum allocations have actually been postponed to 2021, and in some cases even beyond that. And the interesting thing that we see here is that 4G is still going to be a very important and premium service going forward, even for the next 5 years or so. So if you look at the chart on the left here, it basically gives you an idea of the adoption that we expect for 5G penetration in APAC. And then if you look at India, for example, so while APAC is expected to be at about 25% 5G penetration by the end of 2025, India will be at about 7%. And I would say this also generally applies to the South Asia region and also some of the countries like Indonesia, etc. So there is going to be a difference in how 5G gets adopted within different parts of APAC. And the same thing also applies to the applications. Let me just go back a bit again, Kanika, to talk about the applications that we will see from 5G perspective in APAC. So the first is we still expect, like you said, premium content bundled with an enhanced mobile broadband will be important. And I think this will be important across all geographies in APAC. But if you look at some of the other applications like industrial automation or cloud gaming, we expect that these will see more adoption in the developed countries. Whereas in the developing economies, we will see more focus and impetus around basic connectivity using services like FWA, and also services where there is public-private partnership, whether it is smart cities or utilities, where there is a huge impact of IoT and machine-to-machine type communication. So that's where we see this headed.
Absolutely makes sense. So let's talk a little bit about what does it mean for the network. So what kind of network does it take to realize these different applications?
Sure. So, actually, I would say, network is an important part of this, but there is other pieces to this, which is this platforms and the services as well, because eventually it's about how can you make these services easily accessible on top of the network. But if you look at the network perspective itself, there's a lot of technologies related to 5G that we talk about, all the way from the virtualization, cloudification, and opening of the RAN to how the WAN networks are being built out using technologies like segment routing, and then how the whole telco cloud is being built out on top of this. And, of all of these technologies that we hear about, if I were to kind of pick three key ones that are going to have a significant impact on monetizing the 5G services, I would say those are network slicing, distributed telco edge cloud, and the private 5G and LTE. How service providers implement and make services right on top of this is going to be a differentiator for them inside the market. And we'll talk a little bit more about this going forward. But before that, let me just touch upon the services and the platform angle. So eventually, since there is no killer app, since we are going to focus on enterprise verticals, it's important for service providers to choose their battleground carefully, to look at verticals where they think they have strength, and to start experimenting with those services and those verticals to build out services towards their consumers and to the enterprises. Now, once they've done that and they've tasted some level of success, and there is some level of scale required to scale out those services, it's very important to think about how you're going to make that work from a platform perspective, because there is a tendency for these services to get siloed very quickly and become islands which become very difficult for them to work together. So for example, things like managing standard APIs, order management, billing, service creation, you want a seamless experience across services. And it's very important to take this platform approach to do that. So with that said, let's now kind of dive a little bit deeper into this network piece to think about what does it take to make a 5G ready network that provides this service differentiation. So the first part of this is network slicing, whether you do network slicing based on services or based on consumers, depending upon your customer requirements in your markets. Network slicing provides you a way to slice the network to be able to give dedicated SLAs inside your network based on the services that you're offering. Once you've done that, it gives you the opportunity to bundle that or combine that along with edge cloud to do flexible service placement. So if you're, for example, doing a machine-to-machine type service, that could be rendered out of a central cloud. Whereas if you're doing a ultra reliable low latency service, you get very close to the edge and service it from there. So the network slice and this distributed edge tie in together. And this also allows you options for service prioritization, automatic service recovery, etc. And Juniper is kind of trying to bring all of this together, both from the perspective of the network, as well as from the perspective of the SDN controllers and analytics. The second piece to this is the edge cloud and the private LTE, like I mentioned. So the first is edge cloud. And from an edge cloud perspective, what operators need to look at is what is the model that they use to build these edge clouds out? Do you build them yourselves through using either a do-it-yourself approach or a pre-integrated model where you have a horizontal stack on which you offer either container or virtual machine-based services? Or do you buy this as a service? And the fact is that even a question, or is it choose what suits your requirements best for the right application? So what we're seeing now is that typically we expect this will evolve as a combination, that for some services, service providers will build out their own edge clouds. And for some of them, they will look at edge cloud as a service like offerings. The next thing to look at is that once you have a strategy for building out these edge clouds, you need to look at where these edge clouds are going to be placed. Are they going to be placed inside your network? So from the perspective of the enterprise, they are off-prem, or are you going to take them all the way into the enterprise premise for the use cases like you mentioned, Kanika? So the strategy or the network evolution has to take care of all of these, and then coupled with private 5G and LTE. So Juniper is actually working on solutions for both, whether service providers are looking at building these edge clouds themselves, or looking at a managed edge cloud approach with our partnership with StackPath.
I think these are great examples of what is needed in the network. But can you share something from a real project where the different pieces of the puzzle have actually come together?
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, there's a lot of different service providers across the world with whom we are working on a lot of different 5G projects. But the one that I want to talk about today is this project that we did with Vodafone and Continental. This was a multi-access edge cloud trial. And the reason I bring up this example is because it's a very good example of how the industry, which is the Continental Tires in this case, was working with a service provider, which is Vodafone, and along with the network solution providers like Juniper, to bring together a solution that solves a real use case to a problem. So here the use case essentially is pedestrian safety. So you want to make sure that as the connected cars and eventually the self-driven cars come into play, how can you ensure pedestrian safety, and how can you provide real-time information about the pedestrian availability into these cars? So to do this, what Continental wanted was that they wanted to place their application very close to where these cars were. And the way Juniper made this happen was by using an edge cloud built upon the Contrail SDN controller. So this edge cloud was placed right next to the mobile base stations, and this was hosting the MEC server as well as the MEC application from Continental, along with connected security inside it. And this allowed Continental to intercept the mobile traffic very close to the cars themselves as they pass through the base stations. And once they get information about pedestrians on the road, they're in near real time, they're able to pass that information on to the car so that corrective action, if required, can be taken. So this is an example of how technology is coming together to solve a real life use case.
Absolutely. And at Juniper, we've been involved in many such customer innovation projects. A great one is the connected ambulance demo, also with Vodafone, that we did last year in Barcelona. Part of the Sengen initiative together with Bell, Rogers, and TELUS in Canada, looking at this whole smart city part of it, and several others. So maybe it's time to wrap up, and I'd love to sort of connect the dots here. And you talked about some of the pieces of the Juniper solutions that come together. Maybe it's a good idea to just wrap up with a holistic view of how does Juniper play in this 5G era?
Sounds good.
So we actually have 5 pillars of 5G solutions, and The first part is the cloud first platforms. And under this comes our, well-known Contrail Telco Cloud and the whole NFVI stack, which is, secure and fully automated. Under this comes the virtualized network functions, like virtual security, virtual MX, virtual PNG, and so on. Under this also comes, the underlay and overlay for IT data centers that are now a big part of telco networks, and the, production networks as well. The second pillar is the distributed edge cloud, and this includes, the partnership that we have with StackPath that Nitin mentioned. It also includes our own edge cloud solution that can go on-prem or, in whatever the deployment model is. And the best part is that these are purpose-built for the edge, so you could actually pull out the remote, the control layer and centralize it, and you can, keep the edge lean and fit for this space and power-constrained edge sites. Of course, we also include all the functionality like CUPS and 5G wireless wireline convergence and all of these that are delivered through this distributed edge network that are part of this portfolio. The third pillar is the massively scalable IP fabric, and this includes our entire cross-haul portfolio, very well-known product lines like ACX, MX, BTX, for the access, aggregation, and core parts of the transport network. But on top of it, with 5G come requirements like advanced timing, like low latency, like end-to-end slicing. All of these are part of it. And also the entire range of portfolio from 10 gig to 400 gig. But most importantly, also the ability to support any kind of RAN architecture, be it from classic RAN to cloud RAN to even open RAN. Pillar number 4 is the automated operations. Under this, comes our cross-domain automation portfolio that cuts across all the other pillars that I've put here. And this includes, things like HealthBot and Northstar, and also a recent partnership with Anuta Networks. And collectively, we are driving an AI-driven operations approach. And actually, one of the big differentiators that we have is we work on a closed loop automation today, which very few others can. And finally is the connected security portfolio that cuts across everything, because security is integrated with the network. This includes all the distributed centralized SEC gateways, all the different firewalls, be it for the roaming network, for the internet, CGNet, the DDoS protection, protecting the UPF wherever that might be, protecting all the interfaces from the distributed edge cloud, because now you have many more threat surfaces. But most importantly, connected security is about the centralized threat intelligence, that looks at the network as a whole and not just detects, but also enforces policy through a centralized, framework. And together with this, we are driving a very open, agile architecture, because that's what we need for the known and unknown 5G applications. We're driving on-demand operational economics, because end of the day, this must be helping operators completely change, transform their business. And ultimately, we are focused on delivering a secure and assured service experience, because even if you have thousands of services, you cannot monetize them if they are not delivered with the right experience. In the future, service providers will be selling SLAs, which means delivering the right experience. So that's how we are helping operators monetize 5G. And I've really enjoyed talking on this. So Nitin, thank you from my side. Any last comments from you?
Yeah, thanks, Kanika. I think this was short, but good and hopefully helpful to our audience as well. So thank you very much, everyone, for joining us, and we look forward to meeting you at some point in the field.
Stay safe, everyone. Thank you, and bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.